Okay, in this video I am going to walk you through how do we set up AWS related services and its resources, because Matillion will be using SQS S3, SNS, CloudWatch, and to grant these privileges to our Matillion application, we would need IAM service. So IAM service could be used for creating a role and assigning to the EC2 instance, or we can create one user, assign the privilege to the user, and credential of that user could be used within Matillion. Okay, so for setting up the AWS resources, we would be needing AWS S3 bucket. That bucket would be used for storing all the required files that would be used within Matillion. Matillion, whenever sourcing data from any external sources, they used to store data temporarily in S3 bucket, right? And to access S3 bucket, because Matillion is an application and they cannot by default access everything in your account. To access anything in the AWS account where it is deployed, it would need proper permission, and that permission we grant by IAM policy, right? So we will be setting up a dedicated AWS resource, AWS S3 resource, which is your bucket, and we will set up also SQS Queue for all Matillion related activities, SNS topic for all Matillion related activities, and I will be also setting up one Lambda function just to show that how can we configure all the details which would help connect Lambda. Lambda will not be connecting to Matillion, by the way, directly. It will be used in one of the use case, but then I will guide you how to create the Lambda function and assign the privilege to the Lambda function. Then majority of our time will be put in defining the policy, where we will define the policy to have the required privileges on S3 bucket, SNS topic, SQS Queue, and CloudWatch. Okay, CloudWatch is the service where you can publish your Matillion logs, some of the error counts or some of the record counts, some attributes that could be published in a UI. So I am also going to record a video where I will show how can we use CloudWatch service, the CloudWatch component within Matillion job, to populate a graphical representation of our job statistics. And then finally I will be creating one IAM user where I will assign the policy so that the IAM user credential could be used within Matillion. Alright, so let's get started. I will jump onto our AWS console. Here is our AWS console, and in this console we have to search for S3 service. So I will search for S3. S3 is a serverless SaaS-based storage service offered by AWS, and this is used for storing any type of file, any size of file, which could be used by applications. Okay, so anything that we store on S3 can easily be accessed over API calls or through HTTPS protocol. So if I want to access any file just through a web browser or just a simple web interface, S3 is the best place to keep. Here we don't have any dependency on the server, that if the server is stopped, I will not be able to access. It's always available. 99.99% is the availability of AWS S3. So to get started with S3, we should be creating one bucket. Bucket is the logical container where we put all the files, and bucket will have the permissions, bucket will have certain rules that manage the object within it, and also the bucket has the unique identifier. Okay, so click on create bucket. It will ask for bucket name. We need to make sure that the bucket name that we are using here is unique. Unique means it should have a naming convention in such a way that there should not be any other AWS bucket existing with this name, right? There should not be any user in AWS having such name the bucket. So I will go ahead with something like MAT for Matillion and hyphen. There are certain guidelines for creating the bucket name. You cannot use uppercase. It has to be lowercase, and there are only two special characters that are allowed in bucket name: hyphen and dot. except hyphen and dot, you cannot use any other specifier, otherwise it will throw error. mat hyphen demo hyphen November. Okay, so it's the 1st November, mat demo November. You can use some other name also that makes more sense, but I'm just going ahead with the random naming. Whenever we create the bucket, there should be a reason defined, because AWS as a cloud service provider has its region and data centers across the globe, and when we create the bucket will be limited to only one region. So if you see, by default it is coming Asia Pacific AP South 1. So this bucket will be physically available in Asia Pacific region of AWS, right? And all the objects that we put in this bucket will be physically present in India data center, right? So for the compliance purpose also, we have to ensure that the region is in the same country. Otherwise, we look for other applications, like if the applications are in the same region, we try to co-locate the bucket in the same region. Other than this, there are so many properties and features that we have with the AWS bucket that it's really difficult to cover in the same video. So I will skip all of this with default setting. I will be coming up with separate videos where I will explain all of these properties in detail. For now, let me go ahead with the default setting and click on create bucket. When we create bucket, here we see the list of the bucket, right? And this is the name of the bucket. Once we click on the name of the bucket, it fits inside the console. And here, this bucket is uniquely available. So, with this name, your bucket can be uniquely identified across AWS without giving the account name or anything else. Okay. Now, in this bucket, we can create multiple folders. So let's say I'm creating a folder saying sample_data. Okay. Or I can say just sample-data, right? But do not put space. If you put space, then you will not be able to use it in the programmatic access. Click on create folder, and here is your sample data. You can upload files here by clicking on adding files and then navigating through it. You can also create some more folder like SnowPy, which I would be using in some of the activities. And another folder I would create like inbound, for staging all the inbound data. I can create other folder like outbound, which would be for containing all the data which we are extracting out. So with this we have a couple of folders, right? And with this activity we are done with our, so let me copy the bucket name, and we are done with the first activity, which is AWS S3 bucket. Next is we will be creating SQS Queue. Okay. For SQS Queue, I will go ahead and search for SQS. I always follow a practice of opening the new service in a new tab, so that I will still have the access to the previous service. I will right click and open this in a new tab. Okay, so that if I want to revisit my S3 configuration, I can just switch the tab. Here, SQS is a service which gives us a serverless, fully managed queue as a service. So for any message queue, all and everything that is required will be created and managed by AWS. You just need to define a queue name, and you will get the endpoints to access the queue. Your applications can write the message, your applications can read the message. Also, additionally, you can define who can access your queue in what way. So let me create a queue, and here I will use the name mat-demo-November, so that it is consistent. I don't have to use different name for different objects. Other thing that I can do is SQS. I can say here so that by just looking at the name, I can understand this is the name of my SQS queue. So that's it. The rest of the things I will keep it default. Access policy also I am keeping it default, and I will click on create queue. Okay. So with this, our queue is ready, and here is the ARN of my queue. Here is the URL of my queue. Okay. So this queue is created. Next is our SNS topic. So here also, while you are creating the SQS queue, please make sure that this is in the same region where your bucket is. So my bucket is in Asia Pacific 1, and this is also in the same region. It's okay. I will search for SNS topic now. I mean SNS service, and then right click and open it in a new window. Right click and open it in a new window. This SNS service is where you can create a topic, and this is used as a pub/sub messaging, where microservices and applications can publish the message and all the subscriber gets notification. So in case of Matillion, if we want to publish a message of the job failure or job failure message, job statistics, so those could be easily published through SNS. In Amazon simple notification service, we create topic, and for that we can go ahead to the topics, click on create topic, and here we have two types of topic, FIFO and standard. By default it is picking the FIFO. I can go ahead with standard because this is less costly. FIFO will ensure that the order of message is consistent, whereas standard will not guarantee that the order of the message delivery is consistent. So let's use mat-demo-nov-sns. I can use topic also so that it clearly makes sense that this is a topic, right? But SNS will also make sense. And this display name I can say Matillion or Matillion app. Rest everything I will keep as default. Click on create topic. When you create topic, you can add subscription also. Unless you add the subscription, subscriber will not get the notification, right? So whoever adds the subscriber, they will get the notification whenever any message gets published to the topic. I can create one subscription here, and I would say that let the protocol be email. You can also enable SMS also, right? So SMS earlier it was not available to India, but now it is available. If you click on email, and I can click on email. So run easy. Let's click on create subscription. Now the subscriber will receive one message. The message will ask for the confirmation. Once the subscriber confirms the email confirmation, then here in the list of subscribers you will see that this is waiting for confirmation, right? So unless the subscriber just click on the confirmation on the message, this will not confirm, and unless it is confirmed, the subscriber ID will not be generated and they will not receive the message. So once they click on confirm and we refresh here, we should be able to see that confirmation, customer subscriber ID is generated and the status is confirmed. Now our subscriber will be able to access or receive the notification. Right, so with this we are done with SNS also. Next is Lambda function. So Lambda function is something that we will be doing at the end. let's now work on the policy. So for policy, I will search IAM service. This is very important. So the IAM service, okay, this IAM service. Now I will open the IAM in a new tab, and here first we will create the policy. I mean, you can create a user, thereafter you create policy and attach to the user, but let's first create the policy and define what has to be done, as what has to be given as part of the permission to the user. I will click on create policy here, and here I will choose the service. So service, I will be using S3. Select the service. When you select the service, it will select the required available actions for S3 service, and instead of selecting all S3 actions, I will go for the specific action, because law of list privilege says that you give the permission only as per the required access. So list bucket will allow the user to get the list of the objects in the bucket, and list all my bucket will allow the user to get the list of all the buckets. So when we come to AWS S3, here we get the list of the buckets. Unless we have the list all my bucket privilege, I will not be able to get the list of all the buckets. And then unless I have the privilege of list bucket, I will not be able to get the list of content of the bucket. That's where these two properties are, I mean the permissions are important. Next, in the read, I would need get object, okay, and in the write, I would need put object and delete object. Delete object. And in permission tab, this is basically having all the permissions related things, which is not required. If you go ahead with these, your Matillion will not be able to connect to AWS bucket or S3 bucket, because there is something called location. Location related permission has to be given to the object. So let me see, where is that? Let me use this part of quick filter search. Region. There is something called get bucket region. Yeah, so get bucket location. This get bucket location is very important. If we don't have this get bucket location, Matillion will not be able to connect to our S3, and you will get an error. So even if you get all these required privileges, still you will face issue if we don't have this get bucket location. Now it's the time to define that these actions will be allowed on all the buckets, or it should be allowed only to a limited bucket. It should be allowed to a limited bucket, because every user should have the access only to their bucket or the sandbox bucket, right? They should not have the access to all the buckets of the account. So I will be adding an ARN here. This ARN will basically filter these actions only to the required bucket ARN. So I will get the bucket ARN. Now see, bucket ARN is very easy to get. If I select any folder and then copy S3 URI, and here I can get the bucket ARN. But the thing is, bucket ARN, for bucket ARN we don't have to use this copy URI, it is the path. You just put the bucket name here. So ARN for template is already coming, you just put the bucket name. The bucket name is to here, right? So you give this bucket name here, and this is your bucket ARN, which is automatically derived. Click on add, and this one is the object ARN. So object ARN will basically be everything inside your bucket will be object ARN. Okay, so here you give the bucket name, and let's put it like this, and in place of object I will say any. Any means Matillion will be able to access all the folders inside this. If I want to limit it to one folder, I just have to put the name of the folder. So let's say if I put here Snowpy, right? So Matillion will be able to access only the content of Snowpy folder inside this bucket, not any other folder, right? But I will go ahead with any. Let's go ahead with any and click on add. With this, we are done with permissions to S3. But similarly, we'll have to give the permission to SNS, SQS and CloudWatch as well. So let's click on add additional permissions and then again select the service. So SNS, and when you select SNS service, it will give you the list. So just give a list of topics, and then here you give read. So get topic attribute, get message attribute, and for write you say delete. No, delete topic is not needed. Publish, subscribe, unsubscribe, then create topic is not required, delete endpoint is also not required. These are not required. And then permission, so in permission we don't have to give anything else. Now let's add the resource ARN. So add ARN is asking for reason, asking for account, asking for topic name. So instead of feeding in all these details manually, I can just go here and copy the ARN of my topic. Copy the ARN and put it here. Okay? Automatically it gets populated. Click on add. So this way, SNS topic related permission is also done. Let's click on add permission for SQS. And for SQS, we would need the list of queues and receive message. Okay. Then write. So in the write, create queue not required, delete queue not required, purge queue not required, send message is needed, and rest of the things are not required. Fine. In the add resources, again we'll add ARN. So you understand like why we are adding the ARN, so that all these privilege which we are granting will be limited to only this resource, not to all the resources of that particular service. So copy this ARN. Where is that ARN? Here, and bring it here, and then click on add. With this, SQS is also done. Last thing is your CloudWatch. So let's go for CloudWatch, and in this CloudWatch, if I go for read, so you can say get metrics, get dashboard, get metrics data, describe alarm, and in the write, you can say put metrics data, then put metrics LR, put dashboard, and put metrics stream. That's it. Okay. This is in the resources. Let's add ARN. So here in the region, I will say AP-South-1 and any alarm name, because I'm not sure which alarm will be used. Then for dashboard also, I will say any dashboard, because right now I'm not sure which dashboard will be created. And for metrics stream, so AP-South-1 and metrics stream name, let's add. So with this, the CloudWatch active CloudWatch thing is also sorted. Next, let's click on add tag, and whenever we create any resource in AWS has a tagging policy where we add a tag, and based on that tag we can easily filter all the resources. So let's say tomorrow I want to get all the resources that was created for this setup, and I want to clean up in just one go. I can use this tag for filtering all the resources. So here I will say project Matillion POC, and I can also say that okay, environment tag. Click on review, give a name here, so Matillion POC, and this is description is mandatory. If you don't give the description to the policy, it will not get created. So this is for Matillion POC, and let's click on create policy. So when we click on create policy, the policy has been created. The name of the policy is Matillion POC, and this is the policy that we would be attaching or assigning to our user. Okay. Why we need the user? Because the user will have a credential. That credential we will set up in Matillion, and Matillion will be able to access all the required resources through the credential of that user. So I will go ahead to the user and click on add user. And in this add user, I will say Matillion or mat user. Okay. Are we keeping the note of this? So mat user is your username, and here if you yourself is using this credential, then you don't need to give the password based console access, because anyways you will be connecting to AWS through your own user ID and password. But let's say you are creating this user credential and you would share it with some other participants also, other colleague also, who would log into AWS and manage the S3 files and other things. So go ahead with both, right? And in place of auto-generated, I can use custom password, and this custom password will basically I'm giving it a freedom of changing the password in the first login. Next, click on permission, and here I can create a group, because this is the first user. I may be creating other users also in future for Matillion POC, right? So I can create a group, and I will add this user to the group. So group name I will say Matillion POC group, and click on create group. Okay, and while creation of the group, you could have added the permission, the policy to the group itself, but that was missed. Let's go ahead and add the tag project Matillion. Now user is not environment specific, so we can skip that environment and create user. So when you click on create user, here the user creation is successful, and every time the user will log into your AWS, they will use this URL for the console access. And here is your access key ID and secret key. So obviously you could be keeping a copy of this credential. So let's click on download.csv file. And when you open this .csv file, you will have the user ID, right? Access key ID, secret key, and the email login instruction URL. So that way, now you are sorted with the AWS user based network. Okay, so with this, we are done with all the required resources except Lambda function. Now let me skip the Lambda function, because Lambda function is something that will not be reused. It depends on case to case basis, like what we want to perform using Lambda. So I will be covering this Lambda function in other project-based video, where we will be implementing end-to-end real-time ingestion of data from S3 to Snowflake using Matillion job. Okay, so see you in that video. Thank you.
मुझे क्वेश्चन
So yeah, stop.